Our business from the bench story. Today, the Supreme Court heard arguments in a landmark First Amendment case that seeks to prevent the restriction of free speech on college campuses. The case was brought to the Supreme Court by conservative legal powerhouse Alliance Defending Freedom, after initially being dismissed by two lower courts. This suit was filed on behalf of a Georgia Gwinnet College student who alleges his First Amendment rights have been violated. After becoming a Christian, Chike Uzuegbunam, a student at the time, attempted to share his faith with his fellow peers. He was quickly stopped due to a university policy that restricted free speech to only two small zones of campus. Together, these free speech zones made up only 0.0015% of the entire campus. In an effort to abide by campus policy, the student reserved a space in one of these zones so that he could share his faith with other students on campus. Still, he was asked to stop due to making someone else feel, quote unquote, uncomfortable, which according to policy could lead to him being found guilty of disorderly conduct. This case has received bipartisan support, even including a filing of a brief by the ACLU in support of the students. While suppression of free speech was an issue once attributed solely to liberal colleges, recent events have shown that this issue has made its way beyond the campus and into public life. With me now to discuss is Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, Kate Anderson. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Great. So big day today. How are you guys feeling about the reception from the justices so far?
We feel very good about the case. It's important for individuals to be able to hold the government officials accountable when they violate their freedoms, particularly their freedom of speech. And we heard many questions from the justices concerned about how we protect the constitutional rights in this way.
And how did this case first come to your attention? Did Chike, the student, did he come to you first? How did you guys hear about this?
Chike contacted us after he had the situation on campus that you described, where he was stopped twice from sharing his faith on campus and subjected to really egregious free speech policies that would require him to get advance permission before speaking and use one of these tiny speech zones that you described. In addition to being so small, they were out of the way. They were only open 10% of the time, and the policy actually said that once you reserved a space and used it, you couldn't use one of the speech zones again for another 30 days. So these are clearly constitutional policies and something that he needs to be able to have a way to get to court to hold government accountable for violating his rights.
And it seems like the college tried to sidestep the legal challenges here by amending some of their free speech zone rules, their policies, and now that the student himself, now that he's graduated as well, how have they been trying to sidestep somewhat this legal issue?
Well, the college was actually warned 3 years before the situation with Chike that their policies were unconstitutional. Then they applied them against Chike and other students and then defended those policies in court when the case was first brought, only later to try to sidestep the issue by changing the policies. And while it is certainly an important step that they're not going to violate other students' rights in the future, they did nothing to repair the harm or even recognize the harm that was done to Chike, and he can never go back to campus and have that moment of speaking to other students about his faith. And so it's important that this case be able to go forward so that he can vindicate those important freedoms.
And as this legal case has gone on, has the school ever tried to rationalize or explain why in the first place that it limited to free speech to, in the way that you guys have put it, if the school was the size of a football field, that the free speech zones are so small that they would only be about a notebook piece of paper size worth of space in the entire school? Have they ever explained why they did that in the first place? Because it just seems so mind-boggling.
It does seem rather mind-boggling, these tiny, tiny spaces, when free speech should be all over campus. This should be a place where we want students to engage in robust conversation and debate, and that's really squelched when you have these speech zones. The colleges defended those policies, saying that they had every right to have those at first, and then changed the policies so one can read into it that they recognized the problems with the policies, but they've never really gone back and commented on that.
Are you surprised by the amount of bipartisan support that your case has been receiving from the ACLU, for example? I know many viewers, many conservatives, when they hear the ACLU, at least nowadays, perhaps not decades ago, but at least nowadays, they don't exactly put them in the same boat as protecting freedom of speech or freedom of religion, at least not anymore.
Well, we were very pleased to see so many groups from across the ideological spectrum, including the ACLU, come in and support Chike in this case. I think that shows that universally, no matter where you are on the ideological spectrum, we can all get behind this idea that our constitutional freedoms are so important and that they need to be protected.
So the oral hearing started today. What's the next step? What are the next dates we're looking at? When can we expect a ruling in this case?
Well, the case was fully submitted to the court today with the oral argument. We will now be awaiting a decision. Those can take some time. So the court does need to give us the decision by the end of this term, which ends June 30th. So sometime between now and June 30th, we should get a ruling from the court.
And before I let you go, how important is this case for all Americans in general, not just college students?
Well, we've talked a lot about free speech on college campus, and that's certainly a place where this comes up, but it does have a huge impact on people across the country. Anytime the government comes in and tries to violate a constitutional right, an individual's freedom, and there isn't a monetary harm to that that's really easy to show, this case would apply. It's important for the government to be held accountable whenever they're violating anyone's constitutional rights.
Kate Anderson, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and best of luck as well on the case.
Thank you very much.